this is Amanda from the Bead Gallery. Today I'm going to make a gem bangle. So we're going to be working with 12 gauge wire. It's sterling silver, it's soft, but because it's a heavier gauge wire, it's still pretty firm. It's still, if you haven't worked with heavy gauge wire, it's a little bit of a challenge. It's firm, okay? So you're going to have to give it a little bit of gas to work with this stuff here. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is file our ends flat. So generally when you cut this wire, it's pointy at the end because there's not very many cutters that can cut the ends of this wire flush or flat. So we're gonna use a file to smooth out the edges to make them nice and flat. Now this file only cuts on an away direction, so it's not like an emery board where you go back and forth. Okay, this is only away. You can, if you want, brace your hand on the edge of a table. It's a little bit easier so you're not in the air, just floating around. Okay, so again, we're gonna file and push away from you. And you're just dragging the file across the wire. You don't have to put too much pressure on the wire.
Why do we have to file the wire?
You just don't want to have any sharp edges, for one, and for two, it just makes it look way more finished. And you want to have a really nice finished piece of jewelry.
How do you know when you filed it enough?
You know when you filed it enough, the edge is nice and flat. It's not pointy at all, so there's a flat surface. So I'm pretty much there. Sometimes I like to lightly go around the edges because it flattens out and then the edges get kind of sharp, so I just go around a little bit. Okay, and then you flip it over and you do the same to the other side. Okay, so after you're done filing and all your ends are nice and smooth and flat, we're going to use a tool that's a wrap and tap, or a 6-step wrap and tap. So there's 6 different sizes on it. It goes from the smallest here all the way to the largest here, and I like to use the next to largest right on this one here. So the 5th step, we're gonna make a round loop at the end. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna pinch the wire in the jaws of the tool, in between. You're gonna make sure there's no wire extending from the middle of your jaws, okay, and then you're gonna pinch it firmly in the middle of the jaw, and you're gonna use your thumb on your left hand as leverage while you're rolling your right hand forward. Once you can't roll anymore, you're gonna open the jaw of the tool, rewind, pinch again, and again, use your left hand as leverage, your thumb, and you're pressing the wire against the tool as you roll your right wrist forward until you touch that short wire to the long. And that's how you get your loop. Okay, and then the next thing you're gonna do is grab your chain nose. It's the pointy nose tool. You're gonna pinch right above where you have that wire touching the long wire. Okay, so inside the loop. So you gotta push pretty firmly or grip pretty firmly with your right hand. And now your pointer on your left hand is acting like leverage while you crank back your right hand to make it off-centered the loop. Okay, so next step would be to reinsert the round nose plier. Okay, and this reason we do this is to straighten out the loop again. So it's off-centered. Now we're gonna make it centered again by rolling forward.
Are you rolling on the jaw number 5?
Yes, still rolling on the jaw number 5, okay? So it's somewhat centered, but you see I rolled forward just a little bit too much. So what I can do is just adjust it and crank it back with the chain nose plier again. And just, it's small adjustments. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with that. What I like to do is straighten out my wire by just going along it with my fingers so I have a nice straight piece of wire before I hammer it. And the next step would be to hammer and texture your piece. Next thing you're going to do with the texturing is I like to use a ball peen hammer to texture the loop portion. And it's up to you the way that you texture your piece. It's personal preference, what texture you like or decide upon. I personally like this one, so that's what I'm going to use. So I'm just going to texture my loop portion only with this hammer. So I'm just hitting it completely until all the surface is what I like, and until there's a nice even texture. Okay, so you can see that it has kind of like a dimpled surface on it. Okay. So now my next step is going to be using the raw silk hammer, the number 14 hammer, and I'm going to texture the rest of my piece. Okay. This is just eyeballing it. I'm not doing any kind of measurement with a marker at all. I'm really just kind of hitting it where I feel is good. Okay. So all the way to the end, I'm going to texture. I kind of leave spaces in between. And your piece will curve naturally. If you want it to be straight again, all you need to do is take your fingers and kind of straighten it out again. And I would recommend doing this because it's easier to hit a straight piece of wire than something that's really curved. So I always like to continue to straighten my piece out before I use another hammer, or as I'm using this hammer, if it gets too curvy, I'll stop and straighten it out. Just it's easier that way. So my next hammer that I'm going to use is number 13, the short and sharp. This is also a really unique hammer. It makes kind of long kind of slices, and there isn't really any other hammer that you can get this kind of texture, so I like this hammer a lot also. And I'm just texturing in between where I was using the raw silk, the spaces, the empty spaces, wherever I see that I could add some texture in there. Okay, and that's pretty much it with the short and sharp. And you can see there's little marks in between. So we just finished texturing our whole entire bracelet. The next step would be to do the hook portion of the bangle. Okay, so the way that we do that is use the chasing hammer. This has a flat surface on it, so it's gonna flatten out the very end. I like to aim the middle of the hammer on the end of the wire because naturally it helps spread out the tip of the wire and kind of gradually make it narrow towards the wire of the bracelet. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I get there. So I'm just flattening the end, approximately ½ an inch or so of my bangle. Okay, so now that you have the end of your piece of wire flattened out, then you want to file around the edge so that there's no sharp edges. So again, with the file, you have to file away from you to get it to cut properly. So you're just gonna go in a round motion. And again, you can brace your hand on something. You can also use the emery board for this. Reason being is that it's such a small surface area that, you know, it doesn't require a lot of cutting with the file. So you can use the emery board. And also too, with the emery board, you can move back and forth and you don't have to go cut only in one direction. So it's up to you what you want to use. Okay, so now we have a nice smooth edge and rounded edge also. Okay, the next portion that we're gonna do is the hook part. So I'm gonna grab my long round nose plier, that's this tool here, and it's creating kind of a half of a loop in a sense. So we're gonna pinch so that the wire's in the middle of the jaws. Okay, and you're gonna again use your thumb on your left hand as leverage, pushing into the wire, and roll your right hand forward. And the tool will slip, it's okay if it does. It actually adds kind of a nice texture or smooths out that end of the wire. Okay.
How do you know which way to roll the loop?
You're gonna roll the loop towards the textured surface and towards the other end of the bracelet where the loop is. Okay. So then you have your hook. And the next step is to shape it around the wrist mandrel. So this, you might want to, if you are sitting, you might want to stand up. So I think it's better that way. So we're just gonna push the wire around the bracelet mandrel. And I know this is pretty firm, the wire, but try to use as much strength in your hands as you can to push it down as best you can. We're going to continue to push the wire around the bracelet mandrel. This is ensuring that it's going to be rounded. Okay, so you have that kind of shape already started. Also, when you push the wire around the mandrel, sometimes your hook likes to torque back and forth a little bit, so it's not centered. So what I do is I grab the nylon jaw plier here, and this actually shapes without damaging any of the surface of the wire. And what I do with this is I pinch firmly and I torque it back so that the hook is straight and in line. Okay, so now you see the hook is straight again. Okay, so now what I can do is again continue to kind of like push it down, and once I know that that's as far as I can get it with my hands, then I'm gonna hook it together. Okay, and you see that it's off shape, it's like a teardrop almost. Well, we can fix that by putting it back on the wrist mandrel and pushing it down as far as we can. And you're gonna see spaces all around in between the wire and the wrist mandrel, but that's okay because we're gonna get rid of those. So what you're gonna do now is you're gonna take the nylon the nylon hammer, the plastic hammer, and you're gonna hit firmly all around. You are going to avoid the section in the front. So where the loop is right here and the hook portion of the bracelet, you don't want to hit where my fingers are in between. You don't want to hit the loop or the hook right now. Okay, you're going to leave that alone, but continue to hit around firmly. because as we're doing this, it's actually work hardening the bracelet. So that means that when you wear it, it's not going to misshapen. And you want your piece to stay nice and round. Okay.
If you don't have a sturdy table, can we always hammer on the floor?
Yes, definitely. I actually like to work on the floor. I think it's actually better. Okay, so we can take, this is all about small adjustments. So we can take it off and take a look at it, and as you see, it's quite round, but I like how I would like to push down the part where the loop is. I feel like it's sticking up too much. So I'm gonna unhook it, okay, and then I'm gonna concentrate on that section right here so it curves in a little bit more. To do that, I'd like to bring that portion of the bangle up higher on the wrist mandrel so it curves at a sharper curve, versus if you're down here, it's not really, you're not going to get that curve. You need to be up here to get a sharper curve. So all you do is bring it up here, and then again you take the nylon hammer and you're going to give it a few hits. And you can see just by doing that that it curved down a little bit more. Instead of being sticking up, going straight up, it's curving in. Okay? So that helps out a lot.
If you don't have a nylon hammer,
Yeah.
what would you hit it with? Is it still possible to make this?
You could hit it with a metal hammer, but you would apply texture to your piece. But I think the nylon hammer is a pretty major necessity in this project. So I rehook it, and then sometimes I shape it with my hands a little bit just by pulling outwards, because hands work well too for a tool. So again, we're pretty round. We're getting there. This is all about small adjustments, like I said before. You just continue to look at it and see where you need to, you know, make it round or make it flat. It's small adjustments. Okay, so now again, it's pretty round, but I want to touch it up just a little bit. So I put it back on the wrist mandrel, push it down as far as it can go, because that's how we're gonna get the nice round shape, and just give it a few hammers around, again avoiding the hook and the loop, just to make sure that we have it round after we did a little bit of shaping. So now we do have a really round shape, I think. Okay, I like the results of that. I'm happy. Next part to do is to push down that hook a little bit. The hook is kind of sticking up a little bit too high. So what I do is stick it back on. And this is a gentle thing, so you just gently hit the hook because you don't want it to smush down too much, okay? So I just give it a couple taps. And there's a way to fix it if you hit it too hard and it kind of crumbles down. So maybe I'll hit it a little bit more. Okay, I think that. So you want that tension in there, but if it's too hard and your hook comes down too much, you can grab your round nose plier and reinsert over by where the hook is and pull it up a little bit, and that helps it to have some breathing room for this loop here to slide through and hook on. But that's pretty much it right there as the finished product. So the finishing portion of the bangle would be to add any gemstones that you are attracted to, or any beads, anything really. What we like to do here at the store is add some kind of decorative jump ring, whether it's a star or an unsoldered piece of chain, or just any kind of larger ring so that you can make it adjustable, or you can take it on and off. So exchange out different beads depending on what you're feeling that day, or to match your clothes or your mood, whatever suits you kind of. Also, what we can do is tumble your bangle. We do that to harden it. So you can see that actually this one isn't quite as shiny as this. So that's something that we offer here at the store, and actually it does make a huge difference to the way your piece looks.
What does the tumbling do?
It hardens the piece so it makes it stay in good shape. It also polishes it up too and makes it really, really nice and shiny. Another option would be to add a customized charm onto the loop portion of your bangle. So all you're going to do is get a jump ring and then hook your charm on, and you can either, for this, hook your charm on to the ring portion of your bangle, or you can hook it on. So the ring portion would be here, and then if you don't want that option, you can always stick it on the bangle portion to let it like run around with the rest of the gemstones. But usually the popular choice is to stick it on the ring area. And then just close up your jump ring. And if you notice there's a little space right here, you can grab your flat nose plier and rock it back and forth until it meets the wire, so that way your charm doesn't fall off.
Nice.
Okay, so that's it. So thank you very much. That's the gem bangle.